Good evening, everyone, and welcome along to our sixth and final Dean's Lecture for the Faculty of Education this year. It's wonderful to have you all with us, a vibrant and rather large crowd, so thank you very much. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Jim Waterston. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Education, 6 years in this job now, so I'm almost getting used to it, and very pleased to be here as your host tonight. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet tonight, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and acknowledge elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any Indigenous people that might be with us here tonight. I also acknowledge the importance of Indigenous knowledge in the Academy, and that Indigenous Australians have been the custodians of the land and waterways of Australia for 1,000 years. So it's my great pleasure to introduce Kristiina Brunila tonight. Kristiina's been with us for a little while in Melbourne here, and I like to look at the Dean's lecturers and see how they've titled their presentation. And I think tonight this is probably one of the best titles we've had. It's very provocative and really important. Educating for the Future, Education Imperatives in a Future-Proof Era. It's something that a lot of us in education are thinking about. For a long time, schools have followed trends and sort of tried to create the workers of the current era. We're no longer in that space, and I don't want to start talking about it because hopefully Kristiina will have a little bit to say about what we need to do going forward. So let me just give you her bio, and so you can realise what a wonderful presenter we've got, and an international scholar. So we're incredibly fortunate to have our guest speaker with us tonight, all the way from Finland. I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to Professor Kristiina Brunila and share more about her impressive research and diverse career. Kristiina is a tenured professor specialising in social justice and equity in education at the University of Helsinki. Her research encompasses a wide range of fields, from the sociology and politics of education to cultural, philosophical, feminist and youth studies. Her publications delve deeply into the examination of societal power relations and the agency within universities, vocational education, teacher training, youth work, adult education and public sector initiatives. Not shying away from contentious subjects. There's plenty of contentious suburbs here in Australia as well. Professor Brunila has explored the effects of neoliberalism and academic and active capitalism, the plight of at-risk youth, post-incarceration challenges, and the constraints and market and economically driven education and knowledge formations. Furthermore, Professor Brunila leads the International Agora Research Centre in the Faculty of Education Sciences at the University of Helsinki. The research conducted by Professor Brunila and her team has critically engaged with educational inequalities and has been pivotal in examining the governance of knowledge production in the face of market forces and neoliberal influences. Always in pursuit of knowledge, Professor Brunila's team is committed to understanding how societal shifts affect education institutions, knowledge creation, social processes, and the lived experiences of all participants in the education journey. Professor Brunila is dedicated to reshaping education landscapes with a critical lens and a commitment to equity and systemic change, something that will become clear during this lecture. I now invite you to join me in giving a very warm welcome to Professor Kristiina Brunila to deliver her lecture, Educating for the Future, Education Imperatives in a Future-Proof Era.
Okay, thank you for a very kind and generous introduction, and thank you all for coming and listening to me. I will start by saying that I acknowledge the traditional owners of the unceded land on which you work, learn and live, the Wurundjeri, Voi, Wurrung and Bunurong peoples, the Yorta Nation and the Dada Wurrung people. I pay respect to elders past, present and future, and acknowledge the importance of Indigenous knowledge in the academy. Coming all the way from Finland, and it's a long way, I'm very privileged to work and learn here on this beautiful country. And coming from the most racist country in the European Union, according to several surveys, and then hearing about your recent referendum results, I can only say as an educationalist that we have a long road ahead of us. In critically revisiting objectives, content, and methods of education to make sure they don't work as drivers for racism or any other forms of inequalities. So I very much appreciate the opportunity to discuss our research efforts in Finland, particularly concerning the noteworthy reforms in education. But before that, I want to say this. This actually marks my 5th visit to Melbourne University. And I think it shows my deep appreciation for this institution. In fact, my affection for this place is so pronounced that the Dean of our Faculty of Educational Sciences in Helsinki kindly inquired whether I had any intentions of returning to Helsinki this time. So Melbourne Graduate School of Education, MGSE, offers an exceptional academic and research community for the field of social sciences in education. At least that's the way I see it. Drawing scholars from across the globe, I feel very privileged to be part of this vibrant community. Maybe especially in the social transformations and education research group or hub that always welcomes me very warmly and kindly, but also many other scholars from the MGSE, and I appreciate that a lot. The reason why I still probably go back to Helsinki is this. At the University of Helsinki, where I come from, I serve as the director of Agora, an international research center dedicated to the examination of social justice and equality and human rights and democracy within the realm of social sciences in education. Agora is a vibrant research community comprised of around 30 distinguished senior and younger scholars who exhibit a fearless commitment to tackling challenging societal questions. I frequently allude to our Agora as we warmly extend our hospitality to scholars hailing from various corners of the world. Over the years, we've had the privilege of hosting visiting scholars from diverse nations, including Sweden, Iceland, Denmark, UK, Germany, United States, Brazil, Chile, Canada, Colombia, New Zealand, Australia, Spain, China, Israel, and Palestine. Sounds like Eurovision Song Contest, but I warmly welcome you to visit us. A bit about myself, I think, might not be familiar to everyone. First of all, I've been very privileged to be able to visit and work in different universities in Nordic countries, continent Europe, and now for the past years in Australia. And this experience has been extremely important for many reasons. Also because I've understood much more about similarities and changes in educational reforms taking place in different parts of the world. Here's a list of perhaps my key research areas. I believe my research delves into the realm of education through the lens of at least sociological and policy studies, encompassing also cultural, feminist and youth studies and philosophies. In other words, social dimensions shaping educational landscapes is something I'm very interested in. And this interest also has led me to study the topic I will talk about today. So within the Agora Center, I lead a research project known shortly as Future Ed, with a primary focus on comprehending the ongoing global and local transformations in education. Over the years, in collaboration with extensive national and international network of scholars, some of them are here today, we have scrutinized the anticipated future trajectories of education. And it's the findings from this research that I intend to delve into today. Here is a list of some of our recent publications in English that are, I think, relevant to my talk today. I can also send them to you if you kindly send me email. Our findings have served as a clarion call for us, encompassing not only researchers, but also teachers and educators, as they underscore the profound metamorphosis underway in the domain of education. These findings reveal that education is undergoing substantial transformations concerning its objectives, curriculum, pedagogical approaches, and its underlying concept of human nature. It's imperative to recognize that these changes, often carried out under the banner of shaping the future, exert far-reaching implications on the role of education in a society, as well as educational inequalities. Consequently, I believe that engaging in a comprehensive discussion on this matter is of utmost significance. So I will read a couple of extracts to you. They're both from OECD. In the first decades of the 21st century, many actors and stakeholders have urgently argued that education needs to be transformed in order to meet the demands of rapidly changing technologies, new skill demands in the workplace, and to foster equity, social cohesion, and global citizenship. Implicit in these demands and expectations is the aim to realize every individual's potential. 21st century education requires teachers, environments, technologies, educational content, and pedagogical practices that can help learners attain that goal. And the second one goes, the future's thinking offers ways of addressing, even helping to shape the future. It's not about gazing into a crystal ball. It illuminates the ways that policy, strategies, and actions can promote desirable futures and help prevent those that we consider undesirable. It stimulates strategic dialogue, widens our understanding of the possible, strengthens leadership, and informs decision-making. These extracts, both from the OECD, we just love OECD, are just two examples of a vast number of national and international stakeholders declaring the beginning of a new era for education. Schleicher's forwards to the OECD's report, Developing Minds at the Digital Age, in the first extract, emphasizes the outdatedness of traditional education, urging education being brought up to par, and where a better version of education can fulfill that promise. And the second one is Schooling for Tomorrow Starter Pack, illustrating how transnational governing bodies are mobilizing the idea of the future with preemptive politics with an intensive commitment to improvement. The OECD, of course, is not the sole entity to assert that the educational landscape is in state of crisis, failing to fulfill its intended objectives. Concurrently, within the realm of education, a notable paradigm shift has unfolded. A transition from the conventional notion of education to a pronounced emphasis on learning, and from knowledge-centered approach to one centered on skills, competencies, and behavior. As a case of point, in Finland, for example, at the policy level, the traditional terms education and teaching are disappearing, and they have been supplanted by the more contemporary concepts of skills and know-how. This paradigm shift is further characterized by a heightened individualization that prioritizes future learners, promising to empower individuals to attain their full economic potential. And these transformations within the educational landscape have been facilitated by the ingress of market forces into the educational domain. alongside transnational networks and influential partnerships with distinct agendas, which are already effectively shaping and restructuring the educational sphere. One might rightly observe that this narrative appears somewhat intricate, and I concur with that sentiment. Indeed, the complexities of this transformation necessitate a more profound exploration, which is precisely what I aim to undertake with you today. Within our Future Ed project, we have asserted that a pressing need exists for a novel comprehension of the multifaceted and concurrent transformations within the domain of education governance. Governance as a research concept pertains to the orchestration of individuals' actions, objectives, and even their passions, under the influence of a diverse array of underlying interests, agendas, and interests. This orchestration leads individuals and organizations to align themselves with these broader agendas and interests. Today, I'm poised to provide you with a research-derived tool that will hopefully enhance our comprehension of the ongoing reforms. And this is important because education is a fundamental human right and essential for the exercise for equality, equity, social justice, inclusion, democracy, human rights, and so on. Education also has and will have a lot of power to either divide or unite societies, people, and all life on this planet. This tool is a conceptual framework known as precision education governance, a concept I will delve into shortly. The importance of conceptual thinking cannot be overstated, as it serves as a pivotal component in understanding and revealing complex issues. It aids in identifying patterns, connections, and relationships among various elements, offering a structured lens through which we can critically analyze, for example, educational transformations. I posit that educational transformations can be comprehensively understood through the exploration of three distinct yet interwoven thematic lines that our research has tracked while examining the anticipated futures of and trajectories of education. And they are the configuration of education policy within globalized and localized networks, encompassing multiple stakeholders and agendas. 2, the structuring of educational enterprises, which encompasses digitalization, datafication, marketisation, and privatisation. A lot of sessions of education. And 3, the configuration of behavioral and life sciences in relation to education. Although on the surface, these three thematic lines may appear disparate, they still share common objectives, generating related ideas concerning education, humanity, and establishing norms for the envisioned and desired futures of education. I will now provide a brief overview of these three lines, but it's also important to note that that in our publications we offer much more comprehensive analysis of each. I would also like to add that all of these themes are already studied somewhere, at least partly, but yet quite separately. And we argue that it's extremely important to bring and analyze these three themes together in order to understand changes that education is going through more comprehensively and more fully. So the first thematic line elucidates that educational transformations transpire within expansive transnational networks composed of global and local entities, each pursuing their distinct interests and agendas. Intergovernmental organizations like the OECD, World Bank, ILO, and within Europe, of course, European Union, engage in what is commonly referred to as soft governance or soft policy making. They employ this approach by setting out norms, standards, and regulations, thereby building considerable influence in disseminating information, shaping ideas, and bestowing legitimacy upon specific courses of action. This influence also manifests in the policy-making processes of individual nation states. Allow me to provide you with an illustrative example. The OECD has emerged as an increasingly influential node within the realm of education. It boasts a formidable capacity to convert abstract concepts, such as teaching and education, into quantifiable and measurable indicators, primarily through its pioneering agenda of the new science of learning. Comparable governance mechanisms are discernible within the agendas, of course, of other organizations as well. For instance, the European Union operates within a similar paradigm, where a significant portion of its educational policy relies on the dissemination of best practices and recommendations. The governing process hinges on the legitimization of particular ideas as rational, while branding others as unrealistic or just impossible. And this distinction between what is deemed feasible and what is not plays a pivotal role in shaping the educational landscape. The second thematic line, closely intertwined with educational transformations, seeks to render education also more quantifiable, predictable, efficient, and tailored to individual needs. Consequently, it is unsurprising that behavioral and life sciences have gained prominence within the field of education, gradually supplanting traditional educational sciences, as well as subjects like history, philosophy, sociology, and policy and cultural studies of education within universities. And this is happening everywhere. These sciences pledge to recognize and address behavioral, psychological, emotional, and neurological responses, such as learning difficulties and behavioral challenges. This paradigm shift permits the conceptualization of education as an objective, quantifiable, and behaviorally driven product, wherein learning is regarded as an outcome of carefully designed inputs. The previously mentioned new science of learning relies on measurable psychometric and biometrical data, as well as individualized technology-assisted learning pathways. The focus on measurable efficiency extends beyond the learning process itself to encompass various emotional, behavioral, and psychological factors assumed to influence the learning experience and subsequently contribute to specific behavioral and learning outcomes. One potent illustration of this phenomenon is social and emotional learning, which serves as a compelling example of how emotions, well-being, and behavior are transformed into an objective and measurable framework. This approach treats the measurement of individual psychological attributes as an integral component of especially economic forecasting. Cell and similar behavioral interventions combine psychometrics with economic analysis to collect statistical data about children, young people, and adults, encompassing their emotions, personality traits, mindset, and other psycho-emotional behavior determinants. I've collected you a list of books that I really like, and they help, hopefully, us to understand how the emergence of life and behavioral sciences, and especially their popularizations in society more widely, have meant, and what kind of outcomes they have had. And then the third thematic line underscores the evolution of education towards a market-driven paradigm, characterized by a growing reliance on various digital platforms and vested commercial and private interests. Marketisation, privatisation, digitalisation, datafication of education have paved the way for private edtech companies, technology firms, artificial intelligence developers and data management companies to establish a foothold within the educational landscape. Tech companies are not merely offering tools to enhance the educational learning experience, they are also engaging in the collection of users' personal data, which is subsequently leveraged for advertising purposes. These transformations are already bringing about substantial shifts in our perception of what it means to educate, to possess knowledge, and to assume roles as teachers or students, or just human beings. In the field of education, these shifts are conspicuous in the way both the European Union and the OECD advocate for the promotion of more individualized and tailored education, personalised initiatives, and the development and implementation of digital platforms aimed at assessing and comparing the quality of education. This transition underscores the dynamic interplay between educational institutions and the tech-driven market forces, yielding far-reaching implications for the educational landscape. And if you're interested in this thematic line and area, I would warmly recommend you to read Dr. Ben Williamson's, she's from Edinburgh University, Ben Williamson's work, and then Professor Malin Ideland's work, and Malin Ideland works in Malmö University, Sweden. They have written some really good publications and done really good research on this theme. These three thematic lines of evolving education governance collectively work towards the future, and especially the idea of future-proofing education. The envisioned future of education is centered around precision education, a swiftly emerging paradigm that equates education with heightened efficiency and individualized, personalized behavioral management and learning optimization. If the term precision education or precision teaching or precision learning is still unfamiliar to some of you, I kindly encourage you to explore further information online to gain more comprehensive understanding. So, precision education holds the promise of providing an evidence-based, scientifically informed, tailored, and individualized learning experience. It's touted as a universal solution to address the challenges associated with traditional schooling and education. This approach aims to enhance the educational process, making it more attuned to the unique needs and capabilities of each learner, ultimately leading to a more efficient and effective educational system. This is the narrative. Precision education draws inspiration from the foundational principles of precision medicine, which seeks to provide individualized treatment for various medical conditions, customized to the behavioral, emotional, neurological, and biological makeup of each patient. Dr. Ben Williamson has also written about this. Consequently, precision education can be defined as a concerted effort to accumulate, integrate, and analyze diverse data sources, employing methods such as big data analysis and machine learning. The aim is to extract actionable insights pertaining to education, teaching, and learning, all with a focus on tailoring these insights to the individual learner. A noteworthy illustration of the facilitation and promotion of precision education is the burgeoning alliance between the rapidly expanding edtech industry and the fields of behavioral and life sciences. This collaboration leverages technology and scientific insights to support the implementation of precision education, furthering the cause of individualized and optimized learning experience. So, when we combine the three thematic lines, With the overall concept of precision education, we arrive at the foundation for our conception of precision education governance. And this is the conceptual tool I am sharing with you today. I do believe that the intrinsic strength of conceptual thinking lies in its capacity to render these transformative changes more transparent and consequently open to scrutiny and critique when or if deemed necessary. The power of this conceptual framework is, I hope, that it facilitates a clearer understanding of the complex dynamics at play and empowers us to question and challenge them as circumstances dictate. Now, the question perhaps arises, what's the issue with precision education governance? After all, isn't personalised and individually tailored learning a decidedly positive effort, something that helps all children, young people, and adults to flourish and act as full citizens in societies? I have to say that good intentions do not always lead to good outcomes, and in fact, sometimes result is the opposite. We contend that these transformations extend beyond mere educational arrangements or future-proofing, meaning anticipating the future and developing methods accordingly. As a governance model, precision education governance represents a comprehensive framework that extends across global, national, and local networks of educational institutions, regulatory bodies, private and public stakeholders, educational technology and biotech companies, NGOs, programs, various initiatives, and various development projects. Precision education governance presents itself under the banner of precision, through which it seeks to enable the assessment, control, and calculation of individuals' learning experiences, thereby shaping also human subjectivity. Precision education governance promotes the notion of a seemingly neutral framework for assessing and analyzing the efficacy of education, suggesting that issues related to diverse contexts can be resolved through the development of improved measurement tools and standardizations. A fundamental objective of precision education governance is to manage the present by anticipating the future, with a strong focus on the workforce and future populations. In alignment with the thematic lines I presented you earlier, precision education governance shares ideals of an idealized learning subjectivity, devoid of all cultural and societal connections, streamlined for maximum efficiency and individualization, allowing for a choice between personalized and tailored learning options. However, an argument can be made that despite all these promises, personalized learning is not personal, but instead based on preset exercises assigned to students based on their presumed history, grades, and related factors. In the quest to make education marketable, and let's face it, education market nowadays is substantial and it's growing more rapidly than probably anything else. So it's predictable that learning standardization is employed, turning the promised student-centered approach into a platform-centered learning experience. And when this happens, the ideal learning subject is reduced to a collection of quantifiable values, which can be measured, enhanced, predicted, and also manipulated. Consequently, the ultimate purpose of education shifts from fostering perhaps the democratic and critical thinking citizens. Well, I don't know if education has ever fostered that, but at least in my wildest dreams. It's shifting to that of developing more like human capital. Education is perceived as an investment in future markets and personal enhancements within the anticipation of returns of investment and profits. So, as a summary, transnational governing entities, including the OECD, EU, UNESCO, WTO, and others, along with national governments, corporations, the tech industry, think tanks, and NGOs, are increasingly mobilizing the concept of the future. Their preemptive politics are predominantly characterized by a resolute commitment to improvement. The impetus behind this future-oriented outlook is multifaceted and stems from a convergence of global crises, technological revolutions, and profound societal divisions that have thus far defied the imperatives of, let's say it, neoliberal governance. The prevailing economic-centric discourse within the political arena suggests that in an interconnected global milieu, success hinges on education. The prevailing narrative emphasizes the need to equip citizens with specific skills and competencies or know-how to enable them to thrive in a global economy. Consequently, national governments are expected to ensure that every individual has equal access to at least some kind of education, viewed as the linchpin of success. This success is often, however, narrowly construed in terms of professional accomplishments and financial gains. Notably, the definition of education is increasingly influenced by optimization, monitoring, predetermined skill sets and competencies, as well as the cultivation of the right kind of attitudes and behaviors, even emotions, which are said to play an even more substantial role in shaping the essence and purpose of education. And then what? If education through precision education governance turns into precision learning of individual competencies, skills, and abilities, what will happen to the objectives, contents, knowledge, understanding, and vision of education, humanity, and life on Earth in general? So would this be a good time to revisit objectives, content, and methods of education? Absolutely, I would reply. And because we're living the age of solutionism, I will provide you some possible suggestions that can be maybe interpreted as solutions. I think and we think in Helsinki that it's crucial to find a way to recognize precision education governance as a site of negotiation and agency. The problems concerning this governance are not objects, but the products of different practices, policies, and power relations, and therefore should be understood as negotiable and changeable. Educationalists should understand the economically driven governance at its false, and sometimes at least false hopes and promises, and look more closely at how it works and the consequences. And then some suggestions for educationalists. I know there are some in the audience. I think that there is still place for education and educationalists when stripped of romanticism and naivety. As educationalists, we should continue to scrutinize our epistemological and ontological assumptions, the information and resources we employ, the practices in which we engage, and the meanings and politics we ascribe. We could adopt greater rigor in addressing what we do not know. Additionally, we should be mindful of what we do know and what, for example, edupreneurs may not. Inequalities and privileges in education necessitate moving beyond the mainstream and scrutinizing power relations and their consequences, including our own position. This entails recognizing that our desire to possess superior knowledge may hinder our ability to perceive the limitations within these viewpoints, potentially resulting in the perpetuation of the prevailing social, political, theoretical, and methodological status quo and inequalities. So, educationalists should focus on educating themselves. I also want to say this, that I know that this has been a very critical lecture. I'm sorry, and if some of you expected me to talk about Finnish excellence, I'm sorry to disappoint you. I never talk about Finnish excellence because I don't believe in it. But what I believe in is that I believe education should provide space for various paradigms and thoughts and conflicting thoughts and experimentations. And also individualized learning can sometimes work in certain situations. But there also needs to be a balance. And if education narrows into individualized learning and know-how, I think we will lose a lot. Thank you.
Hi everyone, it's a great pleasure to be giving the vote of thanks. And as we all know, Finland is known for a few exports. The Finnish excellence, of course, is one. And I know that all of us here today know that, and not to be lean into the nationalistic metaphor too much, but if there is a Finnish expert that we should be listening to, it's the work of Professor Brunila here tonight and all of her colleagues and the excellent work. And so I thank you so much for coming this evening and sharing the insights of your work. I was really struck by, I think it was an offhand comment, but it really just got a big underlying thread in what you presented today. You said at one point, teachers and students, human beings. And I think for me that really encapsulated a lot of the underpinning insights that you presented tonight around thinking around education as an exercise of humanity that needs to think very deeply about what we're doing with deep, profound challenges to our humanity at the moment and to our planet as well. And I was struck by your opening comments around race and racism, and I was thinking about this personalised learning and its impossibility of addressing those quite striking and global and very local issues of race and racism, what we might call impersonal learning. And I was thinking about how a turn towards thinking about the humanity of education and also the planetary aspects of that might help us think beyond it. And you've given us some really important critical thinking tools, those 3 themes with which to think with. And as you were talking, my final thing that I'll say is I was thinking about Kerry Face's observations, who also works thinking about future, and she says that in futures thinking is often driven by an affective desire about fear of what's to come or a fear of what's occurring. And I was thinking a lot about across those 3 themes, I wonder what's kind of operationalizing those in terms of the fear of what's to come and how we might think differently about that and interrogate some of those underpinning ideas around what the world is, what it can be, to think anew. And I love this idea of a solution as educating ourselves and opening a provocation to ourselves to think differently and to think more deeply about this. So we have a small token of thank you. So please join me in thank you.